99X in the Morning X, Barnes, Leslie. I don't know if I speak for you, Leslie, but I am a true crime junkie, which...
You are. You are more than anybody I know.
You shouldn't celebrate other people's drama, but since they've packaged it up for me and put cool drone shots, I'm all in. And one of the shows that I absolutely love is 2020. So it is a great honor to welcome Deborah Roberts to the show. Hey, Deborah.
Hey, guys. How are you? Hello, Georgia.
A Georgia peach right there. Go Dogs.
A Georgia peach up in New York. Absolutely. The peach beats out the Big Apple every time. Don't tell anybody I said that.
When did you graduate from Georgia?
Well, we're not going to get into dates. Let's not get into dates.
97,
But I graduated from Georgia in the 80s. Let's just say in the 80s.
It's all good.
Well, we are, Deborah, we're so honored to be speaking with you, and congrats on the 2020 and co-anchoring. But we want to talk all about true crime and the podcast.
Oh, my gosh. I know, right? Well, we have to evolve. And I've been with 2020 for 28 years. I will give you that much.
Yes.
People really gravitate toward this. And so we've expanded it out now. We do podcasts. We are going into the true crime vault of 2020 to sort of revisit some of those old stories that people really like. So, as the audience evolves, we have too.
Well, on a slow day, I will dig back into the old vault, meaning, on the TV, and go back to a 2020 that I can find that doesn't feel like too old. I mean, talking about the imagery, like if it looks even remotely modern, and I'm so mad at myself when I've already seen every one of them. It's just, true crime.
It's fascinating.
You have so much true crime, you probably can't keep up.
But, there sadly is a lot of really... intriguing, storytelling to be done when it comes to, sadly, crime. And, I'm working on a story right now that's right in my neighborhood in New Jersey, just over the river from New York City, about, a young woman who found herself entangled with a guy who she really loved and had a child with. And next thing her friends and family knew, she was dead, and they weren't sure what had happened. And so we dig deep into how this all happened. It takes you down to Cuba, where, the man who was accused winds up there, and then he's eventually... So people really like this whole process of how did police figure it out, the surveillance video, and as you just said, the drone footage of that, sort of helps tell, the place and the time of where we are. So it is really interesting storytelling, and it's on us every week to try to make it more intriguing because so many people like you have seen so many of them.
On that 2020 True Crime Vault, the one that I haven't listened to yet that I want to listen to, the Versace murders, dying to be famous. That whole story always intrigued me.
Yeah, well, it's a famous designer, right? And that's the thing. I mean, sadly, there aren't just the stories about just the ordinary folks. I mean, sadly, there are plenty of them. And I keep saying sadly because it is true. I don't want to glorify this. But I think more than anything else, what we try to do and we are proud of is that we delve into the victims or, the folks who are involved in this crime. Sometimes they're people who were wrongfully accused. You get to know who these people are. And that is what we are trying to do. We're trying to introduce you to real people who are unfortunately enduring very difficult circumstances. And I think that's how we distinguish ourselves. We're the number one news magazine. Our podcasts are, number one rated. We're up in the top 5 of Hulu stream shows. So I think people are responding to the idea that we also help you understand who people are who are dealing with these things.
Well, we can really relate because we're on the opposite end of all that. We're on the lowest ranked show, and we have the fewest downloads on podcasts. So we're glad to have you.
Believe that for a second.
Maybe we can, touch on you and just pull a little bit of that energy over. Talking to Deborah Roberts from 2020, newly crowned co-anchor with David. And do you ever reach over and just want to touch that hair of his?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I have actually touched that hair of his. I love David. He is so great. We go way back. In fact, when we were taking our publicity photos, at one point we were giving each other a high five and a hug, and I was like, oh, I touched David's hair.
Did it move?
It moved. It actually moved.
Wow.
He is such a good guy, though. David and I started, reporting together many years ago. Both of us appeared on GMA a couple times together, and I just have watched him, of course, grow in this industry, and just now become, the anchor of the number one program on television, not just news program on television. But he has such passion. I mean, he was just in Israel covering the war between Israel and Hamas, and David was there with a flak jacket on and a helmet, and of course we're all holding our breath for all of our correspondents over there, but David has innate curiosity and he wants to be where the story is. So he's been really, really just so welcoming and so much fun to join alongside, and I hope we get a chance to do some things together on 2020 besides just anchoring together.
Some people may not know, Deborah, that you have a famous husband, and people that don't, dig deep.
Yeah.
And I have to say, your husband has been very hyper lately. I don't know if you're giving him extra coffee.
Honey, he's hyper all the time, but
Really?
He is definitely hyper lately. I don't know what to tell you.
Al Roker is Deborah's
So
husband.
you've noticed that too, huh?
He was acting like he was on a roller coaster doing the weather one day, which I was like, what is happening? And then,
What is happening? Well, you know my world now. What is happening? I ask him that regularly.
honestly, he does that at home. Then he was mimicking the tone for like the emergency tone. He was actually doing it. He's been very hyper.
Half the time I hear things from other people. I say to Al later, somebody texted me and said, oh, did you know that Al said this about you? Or did you know Al did this on the air? And I'm just rolling my eyes. He said he's got that Deborah filter where he's thinking, uh-oh, if she saw this. Listen, Al is just a wonderful, fun-loving guy. He has a great time. And I think he's also just at this point where he's just so enjoying life.
That's so funny.
That's so important.
Yeah, he dealt with a very serious illness back in the first part of the year. He is now feeling great, 100%. My stepdaughter, his first, Courtney, had her first child, so he's a grandpa, and he just is reveling in that. So I think Al is right now on this roll, on this high, where he's just enjoying health and happiness and just, as you said, hyperactivity.
Something you brought up about Israel with David, going over there, putting all the gear on and doing that. We were talking about this the other day. I'm curious if you were as a serious journalist, if they came to you, would you have no problem just jumping on a plane and going at the risk of your life?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I've done that. In fact, it wouldn't even be as if they came to me. I mean, I'm sure David jumped in over the weekend and said, hey, I got to get over there and I got to go get telling the story. Knowing that he's going over there, of course, and we've already got foreign correspondents over there, it didn't make any sense for me to go at the moment. But I was right there in the middle of the Persian Gulf War years ago and happy to sort of jump into that story. Of course, you think a little bit about the danger and your safety because it's a very different world now than we were in at that time in terms of, the risks out there. But I'm always interested in telling that story, of human sort of suffering, survival, victory, all of that. So, listen, am I jumping at the bit? Am I chomping at the bit today to say, hey guys, let me go over there now? Maybe not, but I'm always interested in these conflicts and these stories. So, of course, I still want to chase and I still want to go discover just as David does.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine as a journalist, it's part of your DNA. So, talking about how you guys are launching this companion podcast to the weekly 2020 audio experience. What is your typical day like? Like, do you get up at like a certain time? Walk us through your day.
Well, it's different every day. In fact, when I just came in from a very short run around the park, and I looked at my watch, and it was 10 of, and I thought, I got to get home. I got to talk to the folks on the radio. So I cut my run short to come on back home. I'm very fortunate in most mornings. I do have the morning to myself, but it depends. Today, I'm going to talk to you all, and then I've got to get to the office, and then I may ease out from the day. But then tomorrow, I might be catching a flight at 8 a.m. to go to Greenville, South Carolina, as I was, scheduled to do this week, and just, go jump on that plane, go do that interview. Oftentimes, I hit the ground running, and start working that day, spend the night, work the next day, catch that next flight home. I can get home as late as 11 o'clock or midnight, depending on what the flight schedules are like. Then the next day, I might very easily have the morning where I can go work out at the gym, or Good Morning America may come calling because I do report on a lot of the other platforms, GMA and Nightline and World News Tonight with David occasionally.
Busy.
So if I have a GMA piece, then I'm going to get up the next morning and go do GMA. But I always try to squeeze in a workout there somewhere. If I miss a couple of days here and there, then I'm I've got it scheduled. So for me, that's very important because that's part of my physical and mental health too.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Deborah. The new podcast is launching on ABC. 2020's new season is here. Congrats again on the new co-hosting gig with David. And if you my fleet of drones is always available for 2020, free of charge.
I'll keep that in mind.
Absolutely free. I will cover whatever crime story.
Well, get ready if we call you. And please say hey to everybody down there in Georgia.
You got it. Thank you, Deborah Roberts, 2020.
And that is 2020 for tonight. One more note before we go, and it's a personal one. You've likely already noticed at home, but my longtime friend here and colleague, Deborah Roberts, we've chased so many stories together, now joins us permanently here on 2020.
And David, what a thrill to begin this new season with you, the two of us side by side, working together again. So let's go.
We're just getting started.
That's right.
That is 2020 for tonight. I'm David Muir with Deborah Roberts, and from all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
Good night.
The Morning X with Barnes and Leslie. 99.